challenges. The analysis by the Food and Agriculture Organization shows that the number of people suffering from food shortage and insecurity continue to grow in the world. And the number of people facing acute food insecurity grew at an alarming rate in 2021. The World Food Programme also warned of possible worst food security crisis since World War II. Facing those challenges, further solidarity and cooperation in agriculture among developing countries is imperative than ever. The government of People's Republic of China attaches great importance to agricultural and rural development, and always takes food security as a top priority. China successfully feeds more than 1.4 billion people, an achievement in its own and a significant contribution to global food security. China has formulated and implemented a series of agricultural and rural development policies and emphasized application of advanced science and technology in agriculture. China has also made enormous investment in holistic agricultural infrastructure systems, covering hardware such as rural roads, energy supply, irrigation, promotion of agricultural technology, agricultural product warehousing and logistics systems, and the software such as education and the training system. As a result, China has achieved rapid progress in agricultural and rural development, with steady growth in green production and rural income. At the end of 2020, China has eliminated absolute poverty completely. In 2021, China's grain output reached a record of 680 million tons. Nonetheless, China is still faced with many challenges in agriculture and rural development, such as climate change and resource and environmental constraints, etc. The Chinese government has set ambitious development goals, including Healthy China 2030, rural revitalization, ecological progress, common prosperity, etc., and has committed to reach emission peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. China is a beneficiary of international development cooperation. The above-mentioned achievement in agriculture is attributable to ADB's support, including 21 project loans for agricultural development with a total financing of $2.7 billion, and the knowledge sharing of internationally advanced technology and experience. China is also an important contributor, advocate, and supporter of international development cooperation, especially South-South cooperation. Even during the difficult times in the early days of PRC, China had actively supported other DMCs in poverty reduction and development, and made unremitting efforts for global agricultural development and food security. China has always highly valued the South-South cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region through the platform of ADB, including exchanging and mutual learning of development experiences. In 2005, the government of China established the PRC Poverty Reduction and the Regional Cooperation Fund in ADB to better support South-South cooperation and help other DMCs in poverty reduction and economic and social development, with a total contribution of $90 million. During the past decades, China has worked with ADB to support 133 projects with a total of $74.19 million in the form of tier grants. About 10% of total fund portfolio is in support of agriculture and rural development. And the priority is given to Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation and the Greater Mekong Sub-region programs. Today's webinar is one of the knowledge sharing activities supported by the PRC Fund. We believe this event will provide a good opportunity to introduce PRC's development experiences and provide references to other DMCs of ADB. Given the huge challenges faced by DMCs, we call on ADB to prioritize agricultural, rural development, and food security when implementing Strategy 2030 through increased support for agricultural development and food security in DMCs and enhanced South-South cooperation. ADB should live up to its ambition of building a knowledge bank by providing more and better knowledge solutions for DMCs. We hope PRC Fund will continue to play an important role as convening platform and bridge, combining financial support and knowledge sharing, enhancing exchange of good practices and replicable models, and strengthening innovation so as to promote common prosperity and shared development in DMCs. We also have strong hope that ERRD, as a window for the cooperation between PRC and ADB, will continue to give full play to its strengths and do more in promoting knowledge cooperation between PRC and ADB. Many thanks again to ERRD, SDCC, and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs of PRC for your support. I wish this webinar a great success and more similar events to come. Thank you and a good day to everyone.
Thank you very much, Idiliu. Very important topics you raised, issues, and I really look forward to hear about the holistic approach to agriculture and rural development of the PRC that managed to help eliminate absolute poverty in the country. Let me now introduce the second opening remarks speaker. I would like to give the floor to Ms. Teresa Ko. She is the Director General of the East Asia Department at the Asian Development Bank. She is heading the department responsible for ADB's engagement with the People's Republic of China and other countries. So Teresa, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcia. Executive Director Liu, distinguished guests, and ADB colleagues, welcome to the first session of the webinar series that will share the People's Republic of China's experiences on developing productive, sustainable, and resilient agriculture for food security. We thank the PRC Poverty Reduction and Regional Cooperation Fund for co-organizing this event. We also highly appreciate the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs for supporting this event. South-South knowledge sharing of China's development experience is one of East Asia Department's and ADB's priorities to strengthen our partnership with China and across the Asian Pacific region. Events like these provide great opportunities to bring countries together around common development challenges to share lessons, expertise, capacities, and innovations to support their economic growth and social well-being. I also thank Edie Liu for his strong initiative to push this important agenda forward for ADB. Agriculture plays a vital role to enhance food security in Asia and achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goal of Zero Hunger by 2030. But agriculture in developing Asian countries is facing many challenges, from changing consumers' demand and expectation, rural to urban migration, resource constraints and land use change, as well as a changing climate. China has made significant progress to achieve food security and promote sustainable agriculture and has increased agricultural production by more than 5 times in just 3 decades. This has helped lift more than 850 million out of extreme poverty. The webinar is designed to support the cross-regional knowledge sharing between China and other ADB members to enhance food security through productive, sustainable, and resilient agricultural development in the region. The first webinar today will focus on sharing China's integrated approach to agricultural infrastructure development. China's success in agriculture productivity and reform is driven by strong investments in agricultural infrastructure, together with bold institutional innovations linking small-scale producers to markets. With increasing pressures on natural resources and environmental degradation, China has successfully shifted its policy focus over the last decade from purely boosting food production to a more integrated and balanced approach to transform agriculture into a more sustainable and climate-resilient sector. Private sector investment in agriculture and food supply chains is increasingly playing an important role in the sustainable and resilient transformation of the agriculture sector. China and ADB have been supporting a more integrated model of agriculture infrastructure investment projects that increase food security, boost agricultural productivity, and improve sustainability and climate resilience with a strong focus on institutional strengthening and capacity building. Countries in Asia and the Pacific face common challenges of achieving food security through developing more productive, sustainable, and resilient agricultural approaches. Today's webinar provides an opportunity to learn lessons from the integrated approach to agriculture infrastructure investment in China. Capturing and sharing this knowledge is extremely valuable, not only for ADB's developing member countries, but also for the global community. ADB will continue its efforts to share the development experience of China with other member countries through various platforms, such as the Regional Knowledge Sharing Initiative, the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, or CAREC, and the Greater Mekong Subregion, or GMS. I'm really delighted to welcome our colleagues from government agencies, academia, civil society, and the private sector, along with our colleagues from ADB and other regional departments, to share experiences, discuss challenges, and propose potential solutions for future investment strategies to achieve sustainable and resilient agriculture and food system across Asia and the Pacific. Once again, a very warm welcome to all of the speakers and participants for joining us today. And a special thanks goes to the project team for organizing this webinar and creating this opportunity to bring us all together from across the globe. Thank you very much. Over to you, Marcia.
Thank you, Teresa. It is now time for Bruno Carrasco, who is the Director General for Sustainable Development and Climate Change, ADB. And among others, his responsibility covered ADB-wide knowledge and innovation work in all the thematic and sector operation areas. So please, Bruno, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Executive Director Liu, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department, it is indeed my pleasure to join this webinar series on developing productive, sustainable, and resilient agriculture for food security, the PRC's experience. I'd like to begin by thanking ED Liu, DG Teresa, East Asia Regional Department, PRC Fund, the Ministry of Finance, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs of the People's Republic of China for their hard work, their strong support in organizing this webinar series and providing a valuable opportunity to facilitate knowledge exchange and cooperation between PRC, ADB, and other developing member countries. ADB, of course, is committed to enhancing value addition to its developing member countries as a solutions bank by combining knowledge with finance. In SDCC, the department I'm responsible for, I describe our work along three key areas, KPI. These are not key performance indicators, although it does guide our performance. K stands for knowledge, P for partnerships, and I for innovation. If we get these three right, our ability to support our developing member countries as a solutions bank will be much more resolute. As a multilateral institution, ADB has unique advantages to act as a bridge in cooperation with bilateral, multilateral, and other partners to mobilize finance and knowledge resources for the developing member countries. Taking the funds as an example, by the end of last year, December 2021, ADB is administering 44 trust funds and 5 special funds, as well as participating in 6 global funds. The total net available balance from this is about $396.6 million, and the cumulative contribution to trust funds from all partners is nearly $5 billion. The trust funds administered by ADB integrate ADB's resources with those of donors closely. As trustee, ADB establishes a link between donors and beneficiaries, deepening communication between them and promoting resource utilization to achieve better development impact results. ADB's various funds benefit all sectors and contribute to supporting the 7 operational priorities under Strategy 20, our long-term strategy. Drilling deeper on the characteristics of the poor, we know that about 80% of the 734 million people classified as extremely poor in Asia and the Pacific region live in rural areas, 76% of whom are engaged in agriculture as their means of livelihood. Agriculture and rural development is absolutely important in the region. In 2021, of the commitment of the funds, agriculture and natural resources and rural development as a whole is the second most supported sector after energy. And they received approximately just over $46 million for 27 projects, or about 17% of total project and TA commitments. Of the 7 operational priorities, OP5, which is about promoting rural development and food security, was supported by approximately 40% of projects committed in 2021. So that puts the sector and the food security theme into perspective as it's supported by the various funds that we have in place. Now, since the establishment of the PRC Fund, ADB has worked closely and productively with PRC and the beneficiaries through the platform and channels provided by the PRC Fund. By the end of last year, the PRC Fund has supported 133 project applications related to various sectors and themes, with a total contribution of just over $74 million. Of this total, the overall success rate of completed projects was 89%. This is wonderful. This is excellent news. Very good performance overall. We are indeed grateful to the contribution of the PRC Fund, not only for the $90 million of commitment, but also in the exchange of knowledge among DMCs through this platform. PRC Fund's 3 main objectives include poverty reduction, regional cooperation, and knowledge sharing. All are highly aligned with Strategy 2030, and the PRC government fully respects the realistic needs of our DMCs along these lines. Based on this principle, nearly 85% of the projects supported by the PRC Fund include the sharing of knowledge, technology, and experience between PRC counterparts and beneficiaries. PRC's experience has played a very positive role in solving the common problems and challenges that developing countries are facing. As Marcia mentioned, today is the first knowledge sharing webinar held by the PRC Fund since its establishment. It highlights the PRC Fund will further enhance knowledge sharing by exploring more flexible, diverse, and direct methods beyond project modality. We certainly look forward to more opportunities like this to display and present achievements in the future. With the joint efforts from the government of the People's Republic of China, ADB, and the beneficiaries, the PRC Fund has been productive over the past 15 years and has contributed to promoting the economic and social development of other with the PRC Fund in years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG Bruno. With this, we conclude the opening remarks session, and we can go straight into the keynote presentation. For that, let me introduce Mr. Thomas Panella. He is the Director for Environment, Natural Resources and Agriculture in the East Asia Department at the Asian Development Bank. And he's also the chair of the Water Sector Committee Group for ADB. As Director in East Asia, he is responsible for the agriculture operations in the PRC. Tom, the floor is yours, and I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Marzia. Just a bit of okay, so somebody will control the presentation. First, I'd like to really thank our first three keynotes, their introductory remarks, because I think they set the tone very well. And I don't want to dwell on many of the themes they've raised. But first, I'd really like to thank Edie Liu for his strong support for South-South cooperation. It's a key agenda of EARD, and he's been instrumental in pushing this forward. And especially from my sector in particular, for instance, under Carrick, there is the first meeting on having a new agricultural initiative taking place in Istanbul. And this came out of a initiative from PRC, who is the lead, the host agency for Carrick this year. And this is under Mara's direction. So, you know, in addition to these webinars, they're really pushing substantive and important activities forward. And again, the support from MOF, NDRC, and our other colleagues has been incredibly important, not only to our own program, but I think this whole push to share the experiences of PRC with the ADB as a whole. So let me just quickly go through the keynote here to set the stage. Next slide, please. So what we see is an evolution in agriculture and rural development policy in the PRC. I think with many countries in the 70s up until the turn of the century, what we see is a focus on food production, on self-sufficiency, but also supporting household responsibilities for this and investments in basic agricultural infrastructure, kind of at the household level. But then we see this evolve, and importantly so, with focus on incomes for rural households and agricultural households, and also looking at the competitiveness of agriculture, also importantly, the quality and safety of food production, not only for domestic consumption, but then it provides the basis for export. And then policy changes, look at taxation reform, and also more indirect subsidies to boost production, and importantly, farm mechanization, which helps through consolidation and farmers really being able to produce. And I'd say also importantly, probably, if not the most, at cooperatives, which is looking at finance and institutional cooperation. Lastly, we see coming into the decade that we're in is that we're putting agriculture in a much broader context of development of the whole rural community, improvement of social and environmental welfare. So it's not just productivity and agriculture or even the value chain. We're looking at the whole communities. How can they benefit, but how can we do this in a sustainable way? And that's through possibly looking at food imports, big investment in R&D, which has both domestic and export benefits, as well as partnership with service industries and really promoting the ICT agenda. Next slide, please. So in terms of our investment, yes, we have the agricultural production and value chain investment, all of these things looking at the on-farm productivity production, which has been the tradition and where ADB has started and PRC has started. But then we're also looking at network investments and roads, marketing infrastructure, but increasingly and very important at the digital network in which farmers operate. And that's incredibly important for both productivity as well as profitability. And then again, this broader context of environmental investments, solid waste management, wastewater treatment, non-point source pollution. It's putting agriculture in this bigger yet sustainable investment package in rural communities. And of course, this would not be possible without investing in institutions, again, such as cooperatives, financial institutions. Almost all of our agricultural loans have FI components, trying to promote private sector and commercial capital coming into SMEs, and R&D investment, as well as training and extension services. So it's really broadening the context, and also the services available to the rural community. Next slide, please. We'll just can go through this. This also fits into ADB's overall program of looking at sustainable natural resource management, water, natural resource management, ecosystem, biodiversity conservation. Agriculture fits within this. And then needless to say, climate change is a huge part of what we do. And our climate change adaptation program, especially in climate smart agriculture, is really first and foremost of what we're doing. And I think leading for ADB, and probably we can have a specific session on that. Next slide, please. Looking at the strategic background, the PRC country partnership strategy that was approved in March 2021. The first two pillars, the first is environmentally sustainable development, and again, our activities as a department and my division in particularly support this, and agriculture, as noted, fits directly within the pillar 1, and then pillar 2, climate change adaptation, or climate change mitigation and adaptation. Again, it's a big part of what we do, and we're really promoting efforts on how do we really operationalize climate smart agriculture. We've also supported the PRC in development of their climate change adaptation strategy 2035, of which agriculture is a big part, and that strategy will provide guidance for us moving forward. Next slide, please. We've been involved for some time in the rural vitalization strategy. And again, this is this whole systems approach we're taking: production, value chain, the rural environment, and integrated rural development. And all of our projects, while they tend to be complex, I will admit, but they also tend to be comprehensive and try to come to an integrated solution in line with strategy 2030 to solve issues in a holistic way and at the local scale. I think the PRC, as everybody will acknowledge, is a leader in terms of developing policies. But then how do we bring these policies to the local level? And it's through our projects that I think we can really make a contribution and try to downscale these lofty ambitions to what counties and municipalities can do. And tangible evidence of our cooperation is we have the MOU with NDRC, MOF, as well as an MOU with the Agricultural Bank of China to work together and try and bring these strategies and more importantly, these solutions forward. Next slide, please. So here are our 4 principles of support, not just for what we're doing with agriculture, but it does apply to agriculture, but everything we're doing. 1, institutional strengthening. Governance and institutions are at the core of everything that we do. And again, this is also working at very subnational levels and looking at how we can deal with improved both vertical and horizontal coordination, policy reforms, cooperation frameworks, and then also multi-stakeholder engagement platforms, bringing those communities that are affected with national, provincial, and county officials to discuss. Innovation and technology, progressive approaches, that's again a core principle of what we do. Technology, digital platforms, integrated solutions. We do a great deal of pilots, but again, taking those pilots and then seeing how we can then bring them to scale at a larger level. And I'm very pleased to see that all of our projects are EGM or gender mainstreaming. So again, we have a very cooperative and easy client to work with in that situation. So that makes it important, but it's a very big part of what we do, especially in agriculture, because women play such a big part of the rural and agricultural community that we can involve them. Next slide, please. Knowledge management, high quality management generation and dissemination. Within my own division, we have our own knowledge team that's within the broader team of the East Asia Regional Department team, as well as within SDCC, and we appreciate the support that we get from them. And it's really a team effort in everything that we do to both generate and disseminate at the appropriate channels. And that's another thing we're working on, is trying to move also from just producing KP dry reports to things that also have more impact, such as vlogs and blogs, and taking things in those directions. Capacity building, regional cooperation, strategic partnerships, and again, as E.D. Liu and everyone has pointed out, the South-to-South knowledge sharing is absolutely fundamental to what we do. And I'd say it's also, though, a two-way street, because, well, I think PRC has much to share. In my discussions with my colleagues, PRC also wants to hear lessons from other countries too. And it's not just a lecture series, it's a discussion and development of common solutions on how we move forward. And then enhancing private sector solutions and innovative financing. That's something that's very important to our department. You know, this is the direction that ADB is moving, as we all know, with the proposed reorganization. But I think, you know, EARD is ahead in many aspects, and this is one of them. We work very closely with the PSOD team. And so in all of our projects, we're always looking at innovative financing. How can we involve the local financing? And to me, that's the most important thing. If we can catalyze local finance and come up with sustainable local financing mechanisms that don't involve donor money, to me, that's the biggest success we can achieve. And but PSOD is involved in everything that we do, and we also include them in project teams, as well as in our terms of reference for projects that we're preparing. We will put in upstream work for PSOD, even if it's a sovereign operation, just to make sure that we can look at what those options are, if not for the immediate investment in that, but how can PSOD or private sector come in and eventually into the sector or the space we're working. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide basically is just a mirror of what is going on in the PRC, that we've moved from increased agricultural productivity to sustainability and modernization of agricultural production systems to sustainability of green agricultural production systems. And this is what's going on. And we didn't talk about our Yellow River Ecological Corridor program, but this is really a core of what we're trying to do, is to come up with a green development strategy that has agriculture and use of natural resources at the core, but do it in a sustainable way that supports livelihoods, as well as promotes economic development, while conserving and in fact enhancing and perhaps redressing some of the environmental degradation that's taken place in the past. Next slide, please. This project, the Yellow River Basin Green Development, High Quality Agricultural Development Project, we're going to go to loan negotiations in the next week. This is a flagship project in the Yellow River Basin, again, focusing on agricultural productivity, but at the same time, looking at it holistically from value chain and ensuring that it is environmentally sustainable, and using it as a way to develop concepts and approaches that can be upscaled across PRC and with our other DMC clients. Next slide, please. Here, this basically is just a slide to show about some of the intermediary, the financial mechanisms that we're looking at, where ADB will put in investment, and it can be both in equity, lending, and it's for eco compensation. And this is from the Anhui Huangshi Shen River Ecological Protection Green Development Project. And it's incredibly innovative. And I don't want to go into the details there because I don't think we have time, but I will say that the one thing where, again, EARD is a leader is I worked so closely with my financial director And all of our projects, we're doing innovative finance activities that, yes, we're providing sovereign loans for investment, but at the same time, we're really trying to develop models that are sustainable for commercial finance at the subnational level, to promote investment in green agro enterprises. And again, this is something where we could have a 2-hour seminar, because it's really interesting what we're doing. And I will close with that, I believe. Next steps. Look, ecological corridor program is well on its way. We have a strategic plan, we have investments. We are looking at integrated solutions, green financing, partnership, again, as I noted, private sector, and policy and institutional reform. It's really, I think, a new way of ADB doing business, but it's the way that ADB does have to do business in the future. And really appreciate the support we have gotten from PRC colleagues in MARA, MOF, and DRC, and then also from PRC Fund to help share these lessons. And we will continue to share these lessons. And again, a special thanks to Edie Liu, who knows the sector well, and I'm fortunate to have him as a colleague. And I'll close there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom. A lot of food for thought. But what I would like to highlight here is going back to what DG Bruno mentioned, KPI. Really, you can tell we work a lot on knowledge, on partnerships, and innovation. We cannot avoid these three very important letters. So thank you, Tom, very much. I think in the interest of time, let me move on to the next session, which is, we have 6 panelists, very interesting people. And let me start with Ms. Su Wei. She is the director of the Department of Farmland Enhancement from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs of the PRC. Ms. Su, of course, you have 5 minutes. What I would like to ask you, if you could, you maybe, apart from what you want to say and comment on Tom's presentation, if you could really stress the lessons that MARA could share with other development member countries of ADB. So you have a lot of experience, a lot of lessons learned. So we would be happy to hear from you on this. Ms. Su, the floor is yours.
谢谢主持人。我是农业农村部农田建设管理司苏薇，很高兴。
Farmland Enhancement Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. I take great pleasure in attending today's webinar. Our department was founded in 2018. So at that time, some agriculture-related functions from the DRC, MOF, as well as Ministry of Natural Resources and Water Resources have been integrated, and thus we formed this department in MARA. So we implement the national strategy of rural revitalization. Our goal is to increase agriculture productivity, deepen the supply side reform in agriculture sector, and we need to build a high quality farmland. That's our core tasks. In September 2018, the national plan for the construction of a high-level farmland was released. So this high-quality farmland is a critical measure to enhance food security in China. So this investment in the farmland infrastructure and enhancing the resilience of the farmland are of critical importance to China. It will help us to implement the most stringent farmland protections policies, and also we can advance this resource saving and water saving agriculture till the end of 2021. Now we have completed the construction of 90,000 mu of high quality farmland. We have built our capacity in agricultural production. So these high quality farmland is of public benefit. It brings tangible benefits to the general farmers. So we think that there are several ways of investment for the high quality farmland. One is that government needs to make more investment. Government needs to consolidate its mechanisms for investing in this farmland development, following the tasks from the Ministry of Agriculture. All the local governments will need to ensure that the funding is in place. And secondly, we need to engage the private sectors. So the government may provide some subsidies, and also we can encourage some social capital to invest in the construction of high quality farmland. And also the local governments are encouraged to issue bonds to invest in this high quality farmland. And also we encourage the farmers and rural cooperatives to raise financing for the high quality farmland construction. And then we also need to use the international financing. So in 2018, we have undertaken the functions for international cooperation in terms of the construction of high quality farmland. We have been working together with a number of international financial institutions. We think that these foreign capitals are important sources for us to enhance international cooperation and advance agricultural development in China. We draw upon good experiences from international organizations and other countries, and those are very helpful to us. I wish to thank Tom. In fact, our department has maintained a close partnership with the ADB. We have two major projects in Yangtze River and in Yellow River. And then this infrastructure investment is an important part of our project. So this Yangtze River project was initiated in 2019. The total investment is 3 billion RMB. The ADB lending is 300 million US dollars. And then the project covers 6 provinces and 47 counties. Over the past 3 years, the project has made bold progress in terms of the control of non-point source agricultural pollutions. And also in our project, we provide trainings to farmers and technicians, and we invite experts to share their experience and technical expertise with the farmers. And also, we encourage farmers to adopt the climate smart practices in their agricultural production. Around 2.05 million people benefit from the project, and the upcoming Yellow River project will be implemented in 7 provinces in Yellow River Basin. The project will be negotiated in the next week. So this project has ADB lending of 157 million US dollars. And then in this project, we focus on the control of agriculture non-point source pollutions, as well as the ecological security. In this project, we will develop the green agriculture value chain. And we hope that we can shift the agriculture sector from a carbon emitter to carbon contributor to a carbon mitigator. So in this project, we share the common goals with the ADB. ADB shared the technical expertise with us, and also ADB provides a good platform so that we can communicate with more partners. So in our project, we always give top priorities to the interests and rights of farmers. In particular, in some provinces, we have a lot of ethnic minorities as well as a large proportion of women farmers. So we give adequate attention to protect these vulnerable groups. I do hope that in this project, we can explore the best practices in improving quality of farmland in other areas. I hope that we can have more cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for staying within the time. Yes, I think Tom mentioned that the complexity of the projects in the PRC, and starting from, we need to take care of the farmland and indeed have protection programs of the farmland to increase the quality, to have a more sustainable food security. So thank you very much, Ms. Su. I would like, before going to the next speaker, I would like to remind the attendees that they can put their questions in the Q&A chat box if you have any question coming up from the various presentations that you are listening to. So let me go then next to Professor Jing Zhou. She is the chair professor of Nanjing Agriculture University and the director of the Center for International Food and Agriculture Economics at the Nanjing Agriculture University. So Professor Zhu, if you could maybe give us a broader view and stress the importance of the policies in terms of infrastructure, agriculture investment, and in terms of food security policies that, you think they made a difference in the case of China, and what do you think would be the impact for other developing member countries of ADB?
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. I hope that it works fine. And thank you, Chairperson. Dear Executive Director Liu, dear colleagues in the ADB and distinguished guests, and thank you very much for the invitation to me to participate this webinar. And it is my great pleasure to serve as a discussant following the very impressive keynote, I should say, presentation by Director Thomas Panela. And here as a discussant, I would like to share with you China's food security and public investment in agriculture, past experiences and prospects in the future. As we know that China is a country relatively poor in its natural resources, in terms of its big size of population, in per capita terms, it is well below the world average. However, during the past more than half a century, the country's food consumption level grows from the status of significantly below the world average to that of well above in terms of both daily energy intake as well as specific food items almost across the board. However, the achievement has been made with much challenges being addressed in terms of food availability, given the natural resource constraints and fragile environmental conditions, physical accessibility challenges because of the unbalanced distribution of production area, and the complicated connections needed in between production and consumption, as well as affordability issues, especially for rural disadvantaged groups. In the past decades, public investment in agriculture has been playing very critical role, I should say, in addressing these challenges, including, for example, enhancing agricultural production conditions, improve rural transportation and communication system, as well as increase rural income. Needless to say, the fiscal expenditure on agriculture has been ever increasing in China. with the major investment area on farmland and irrigation construction, agricultural research and extension, agriculture mechanization, environmental protection, rural infrastructure, agricultural value chain and industrialization, and etc. In fact, they are not separated from, but in complementary of each other, and with investment focus adjusting with the change of time and development. As we know that China always accomplishes what it has planned. So it is a meaningful and worthwhile process to take a closer look at the country's 5-year plan to get a good understanding of its past development, as well as its directions for the future. Looking back from the 1st to 9th 5-year plan, we could see that very high priority has been put on irrigation and water conservancy, which accounts for, on average, more than 60% of the total agriculture infrastructure investment during that period. Another important aspect that's worth mentioning is the investment in agricultural R&D grew with a mild 4 to 5% annual increase, but contributed significantly to the output growth in China's agriculture. In the 21st century, that is during the 10th to 13th period, 5-year plan period, we could easily witness the growing importance to farm land quality improving, growing diversity of coverage of food items, in addition to major crops, and catering to regional differences. And the projects were aiming more and more specific and targetedly designed. And growing importance has been attached to environmental protection by promoting decrease the use of fertilizer and pesticides, and investment in electricity, roads, and the internet, which involve from build to connect, facilitating marketing in agriculture and non-agricultural goods and services, linking the rural and the urban tangibly and intangibly. And farmers' income, of course, has been increasingly addressed by extending the agricultural value chain and agricultural industrialization. Well, so from the past experience during the 10th to 13th 5-year plan, we can see the focus of directions from general to more targeted coverage of the projects, from relatively unified to increasing diversified areas, and from focusing on quantity needs to meeting the upgrading demand for quality life. Now, China stands at 34th among the 113 countries in the 2021 Global Food Security Ranking List. What we will do as a next step? Okay, it would be also worthwhile to take a look at China's 14th 5-year plan, which started now. In fact, there were 19 sections, 65 chapters in this document. And we can see there are projects that specifically made for modern agriculture and rural development, which covers the following area, which I will only name their title: high standard farmlands, modern seed industry, agricultural mechanization up to a bigger and higher level, and animal epidemic prevention and crop pest control for environmental concerns, which are more to the geographical characteristics, as well as the control of agricultural non-point source pollution for a better sustainable environment. Of course, there will be more and more investment on agricultural cold logistic facilities building, which are much of the focus of the future investment, as well as a further improvement of rural infrastructure following on the achievements made in the 13th 5-year plan. Of course, improving the living livelihood of the rural people to increase their purchasing power has always been and will continue to be an ever more important sectors. So it could be inferred from the plan that in the next 5 years, agriculture and the food system in China will become more and more efficient, sustainable, and environmentally friendly. Modern technologies in seed, soil protection, fertilizer, pesticide, and their application will be developed and upgraded with much endeavor. And at the same time, the massive investment would be expected to devote to rural infrastructure, both for modern agriculture development and for the improvement of rural living. Of course, the linkage between the rural and urban will become tighter and closer. And we can see that the rural areas will tap the potential of urban developed consumption with not only more higher quality nutritious food, but also with beautiful environment for rural tourism, serves to the revitalization of the rural areas, which is the big strategy of China in the next 5 and even longer years. And with that, I would like to conclude my discussion. And it is, again, a great pleasure to participate, and I benefit a lot learning from the previous keynote speakers and the keynote addresses as well as the discussants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Zhu. Your presentation is very, very important to show how complex is the sector. How a holistic approach is really needed to have advancement in food security. So thank you very much. I'm sure people listening to the presentation might have more questions. Please feel free to put it in the Q&A chat box. Let me then move to the next discussant, Mr. Muhammad Hisra. He is the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture from Pakistan. And we would like to hear from him on how China experience of development agriculture infrastructure can be useful for Pakistan, and how knowledge cooperations can really support Pakistan and other ADB developing member countries. Mr. Muhammad Israr, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam. First of all, I'm thankful to PRC, ADB, and all the relevant organizers for arranging this webinar. And thank you very much for inviting me as a discussant on the webinar issue. So as we know that China is basically one of the most populous country, having a population of 1.4 billion. And it is almost the third largest country in terms of area in the world, but still at 67% people are residing in rural areas. And to enhance the rural development, next, I think you can change the slide. Chris, Mr. Chris. Okay, so this will sequence my presentation, and next. So first of all, I will a little bit say something about China, that it is a populous country with a population of 1.4 billion. It is the third largest country in terms of area, and 67% people are residing in rural areas. So the Chinese government started its 13th five-year plan, in which the most focus and the priority was on the boosting of the supply reforms, modernization and agriculture sector, and then to refine agriculture structure and development, diverse kinds of appropriate business models, and to promote the positive interaction between urbanization and agriculture. So the focus of the Chinese government in 2016 was on the rural development with all these measurements. Next. If we look into the Chinese development model, it started that the new increase is obtained in overall agriculture production capacity through intensification of the crop production technologies intercropping, relay cropping, and many other technologies to grow more crops and having maximum cropping intensity to feed the more population. Then the progress is being achieved in agriculture operating system because they made huge investment in research, extension, mechanization, on-farm water management and infrastructure, as mentioned by Jinzhou. Similarly, continuous increase is gained in contribution rate of agriculture scientific technologies progress because the institutions and especially the Chinese Academy of Agriculture Sciences in collaboration with the federal and provincial institutions, they work in collaboration and research findings are transferred to the extension people and into the farming community to have enhanced production from their crops. Similarly, a new growth is given in farmer income because if the farmers are able to have higher cropping intensity to raise more crops from their fields, so the income level is also increased. Next. Now coming to the success story of the Chinese Academy of Agriculture Sciences, that they work in collaboration and especially different organizations, about 210 organizations are there in China, and they have developed technologies for 9 major crops, which include corn, rice, maize, soybean, rapeseed, and dairy technologies as well. So this is the successful model which the developing world can adopt. Like we should have strong coordination with all our institutions because the research findings and the academia findings in research is not translated to the farmer field. So there is a disconnect of the research and extension. And once the technology is developed and it is proven and tested, so it needs to be transmitted to the farming community. Next. So there are some challenges, like the prominent one is the restrictions of agricultural resources and environment becoming more and more severe. You know that the urbanization is a major threat to all countries, and especially China and Pakistan as well, because there is uneven urbanization and most of the productive agricultural lands are converted to real estates and buildings. So I think the ADB and PRC could help the developing countries that what sort of model they should adopt to reduce the influx of the population on the major agriculture areas. Then the other issues is the overexploitation of groundwater, because with the solarization, most of the tubeways are having the facility of solar panels and the farmers are over extracting water. So there should be a mechanism that the groundwater should be recharged and the aquifer should not be over exploited. So I think that could be one of the areas wherein the developing countries could be assisted through ADB and PRC if they are having the good model to go for its application. Next. The second prominent issue is the imbalance in the structure of agricultural production has already become a growing problem. So with this mean that basically the drought, water stress, climatic factors, they are adversely affecting the grain crops. And for that matter, I would propose and I would request ADB and the PRC that if they are having any success stories pertaining to crop climatic simulation modeling, and they could assist the developing countries that what will be the weather patterns down the line 10 years, 15 years, and what sort of cropping pattern they should adopt and what sort of research should be there so that the crops and the livestock breed should have the sustainability to survive in those adverse conditions. Next. The third prominent issue is the low quality and efficiency of agriculture development becoming a growing problem. I would mention that in the recent past, the cost of production in developing countries has risen. The seed prices, fertilizers, pesticides, machinery, irrigation, all that are becoming too expensive and the farmers are not going to go for the production of their fields and crops. So for that matter, I would propose that there should be a mechanism of subsidies, support prices for the lower farmers having a range of like 12 acres of land so that they can be assisted to have quality seed, have the proper inputs for application to their crops so that they can get good productivity of their crops. So there should be a mechanism with the linking of financial institution and bank so that they can support the subsidies and support prices for the agriculture products. So along with that, I would mention that the developing countries are facing next a number of problems which include policy and regulatory framework. I would mention that basically the agrarian land reforms, that is a major issue in Pakistan, and we are not having the land zoning. There should be a proper planning that what sort of land should be used for which sort of facility, like industrial areas should be identified, agriculture areas should be identified, then cities and urban areas should be identified, and then we should judiciously use all those resources. Then we are having the problems of institutional capacities and coordination. As I mentioned, that research, academia, and extension, they are working in silos. So there is a need that there should be mechanism that the research should be transferred to the farming community. Poor crop and animal husbandry practices, you know that most of the developing countries, farmers are not getting quality seeds, and ultimately the production is very less. So in that case, Chinese government and ADB can assist the developing countries that how the farmers of those areas can get quality seed, or the research system could be improved so that the cultivars and the varieties which are developed could be made available to the farming communities easily. Then we are having the problem of monoculture because we are having a scarcity of water, or the people doesn't know that how the water should be judiciously utilized, because if you are having abundance of water in some of the areas, we are using flood irrigation system. So I think there is a need for the high efficiency irrigation system of drip and sprinklers so that we can utilize that water to more area and we can bring more area under crops. Extreme weather conditions, you know that some of the areas in developing countries, especially in Pakistan, they are exposed to extreme weather conditions. The evapotranspiration ratio is very high, and there is no mechanism that how to conserve the soil moisture so that could be utilized for crops. Then soil erosion and poor soil fertility mapping. There is a need that we should develop a mapping of soil fertility of the whole region so that the farmers can know that what sort of cropping pattern they should adopt and what sort of practices they should observe. Soil erosion, you know that most of our areas are exposed due to floods to soil erosion, and as it was mentioned, the deforestation in some of the areas is being carried out and leads to flash floods, and these flash floods leads to erosion, and ultimately the river beds are inundated and leads to inundation. So there is a need that soil erosion should be addressed. Then we are having the deforestation, loss of organic matter from the soil, and overgrazing of some of the areas. That is also an issue. Low rainfall, vulnerability, salinization, lack of digitization. I would mention lack of digitization because you know that we can adopt the model of Chinese government that if the farmers are getting weather forecasting, market information, similarly the cropping patterns, advisory services. So I think we can bring a revolution in the agriculture extension system with digitization, and we can assist the farming community to grow better crops in light of the scientific advisory services. Then we are having the orthodox methods and non-use of modern equipments because Chinese government has brought a revolution in agriculture sector. And as it was mentioned by the executive director, that the production has been almost 5 times increased in last 3 decades. So we can also go for that, but it needs that we should have the proper application of scientific machinery. So it could be used for different crops and we can increase our productivity and reduce our losses. Wastage and over exploitation of natural resources is very common in most of the developing countries. And for that matter, we can go for the natural resource management plan, and it includes even forestry, agroforestry, social forestry, and then the watershed management, and then it could be linked, as one of the participants mentioned, about the ecotourism. So these are some of the areas wherein we can learn from the Chinese government experience. Quality and certification, it is also an important area because we are unable to export our commodities to different countries because we are not compliant with the international SPSS standards, sanitary standards. So I think if we can educate the farming community that in some of the areas we are having the surplus commodities, we can change them into value-added products by improving its value addition and supply chain management. I think we can grab a better chunk of the international market. Next. Now the new requirements to sustainable development. Next. New requirement to sustainable development like changing growth patterns and regulating structure to realize sustainable development, by which I mean that ADB is making investment in Pakistan and in different countries in water sector. So unfortunately, the water dams and the reservoirs are built up, but the command area is not being developed. So I think in future, if they are making any investment in any project, the command area development should be one of the component of those projects, because the command area, unless it is not developed, we cannot make better use of that conserve water or water dams. So I think there should be a holistic approach that the animal husbandry, crop husbandry and irrigation should be holistic. And then we should also switch over from the artificial fertilizers and pesticides, and we can even change our cropping patterns to adopt the exhaustive crops followed by the restorative crops so that the fertility of soil could be restored. And similarly, the evapotranspiration could be reduced by adopting various mechanisms and different cropping patterns to have the mulching mechanism or smothering mechanism so that we can have better utilization of the crop moisture. Similarly, we can establish the modern agriculture industry system with a high degree of integration among primary, secondary, and tertiary industry, like the producers, the buyers, and then the processors. That link is also missing in Pakistan and most of the developing countries. So in that case, the PRC, if they are having any success story, that could be adopted in Pakistan and different countries. And then expansion and change of agriculture, multifunctions, the nutritional aspect should also be taken care of, because we are talking of food security and the SDGs, they are also ensuring about the maternal health and the child health. So they are linked to the healthy nutrition. So unless and until we haven't taken care of the nutritional aspect in our agriculture program, I think we would not be able to address that area. Next. So these are some of the proposals for future collaboration with the developing countries and regional partners. Like we are supposed to enhance the scientific visits and joint PhD high education programs with PRC and Chinese Academy of Agriculture Sciences. Then we should also encourage cooperation in research and prioritize topics such as soil erosion assessment, land usage, natural resources management, agriculture biotechnology, agriculture remote sensing, and plant protection, and jointly apply the for calls from China, Beijing, and European Union. If they are having any successful projects, we can go for its adoption. And then under the framework of the Science University and Chinese Academy of Sciences Joint Laboratory and Global Change and Food Security Joint Exploration could be carried out, and we can go hand in hand with the Chinese government and ADB to address all these issues. In the last, I would mention that the South-South cooperation in Asia Pacific region, and especially as Thomas mentioned that the PRC revitalization strategy, that is very important, because we can go for production chain system development, and then we can also have the value chain development, and then the rural environment could be addressed properly, leading towards rural development. Same is the case in Pakistan. Like most of the people are living in rural areas, and if we could give them proper livelihood and proper opportunities of jobs in agriculture sector or allied sectors, I think we can, with this way, reduce the rural-urban migrations, and we can go for the betterment of the livelihood of the rural areas of Pakistan. With this, next, I'm thankful to all of you for inviting me to this webinar, and I'm confident that this sort of arrangement will go in hand, and in future, we are looking forward that we should be made part of these events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Secretary. I really enjoy your assessment of the problems, and I think there is a lot of you can cross-cut with the presentation from Professor Zhu and see some of the answer to your issues and the issues of developing countries in general. This brings me very much to the next speaker, Miss Yasmin Siddiqui. She is the Director of Agriculture, Environment and Natural Resources from the Central Asia and West Asia Department at ADB, covering countries like Pakistan and Central Asian countries. And I would like to ask Yasmin if she can, maybe stress how this knowledge sharing can help countries like Pakistan, as stressed by the Mr. Secretary. Yasmin, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Marcia. And firstly, thank you to all of the preceding speakers, to Idiliu, DG Bruno, DG Teresa, and of course, Tom, and other speakers, including Professor Zhu, Secretary Israr. You've provided much insight already on some of the challenges faced, some of the solutions that we can gain through knowledge sharing and cross-learning, and particularly from South-South learning. So I'm fortunate to be covering agriculture and natural resources across Central and West Asia region, which comprises 10 countries. If we can go to the next slide, please. I would say that perhaps the roots of it are very much embedded in the Silk Route, and therefore there is that natural historical link for South-South cooperation. I thought that through this presentation, which I'll keep brief, Secretary Israr has provided much of the very detailed information for Pakistan. I'm going to start with a slide just giving a broad overview. As I mentioned, 10 countries starting from Pakistan and ending on the doorstep of Europe with Georgia and Armenia. This is a vast region with many contrasts, and here we've tried to summarize, and I'm very thankful for the team in CWER who've helped prepare this presentation. Acknowledgement to all of them for their knowledge and information that they've shared. These are some of the key areas that we consider are commonalities, and we want to share them because without understanding the commonalities, it's hard to find those bridges and the links on how we can really explore and deepen South-South cooperation. So quite self-explanatory. Firstly, the access to information and technology, and we see vast differences across our region. And just to remind colleagues who are on the call, our region also covers countries such as Afghanistan, such as Tajikistan, where lack of digitization, access to the internet, opportunities for enhancing technologies is really severely challenged and hampered. We've listed some of those key areas. Importantly, lack of sector data for decision making. And we find that this is quite a common feature no matter which country we're in. Secondly, if we look into capacity and institutions, I believe it was Secretary Israr who highlighted about small-scale farmers, and also Professor Zhu. A real commonality across our region is the predominance of small-scale farmers, their limited access to knowledge and other inputs, particularly quality seed, land tenure security, which we see very much across the Central Asian region, where land is largely leased. Now, to make investments on land, which is leased, is challenging, because if I have a 40-year lease, where are my returns and what's my incentive for that investment? Again, highlighted earlier by Tom, gender inclusiveness. Women form one of the most predominant groups engaged in agriculture, largely unrecognized, largely unpaid for their work, and very much often excluded from knowledge building, capacity building. Climate resilient agriculture, I'd like to emphasize on this, and we have an event this Friday, Thursday and Friday, being led by PRC and CARIC country members to look at how we build resilience in agriculture. Lastly, enabling environment. Again, Secretary Asiaand touched upon this, the need for policy and regulatory environments for enabling movements towards improved agriculture and sustainability, and also looking at regulatory frameworks and participation by the private sector. And I think Professor Zhu touched upon that. So again, we find many common areas where we could build those bridges and links across the regions. Next slide, please. Here I've listed some of the knowledge support that our team is providing to Pakistan. I'm not going to go into this in detail because I believe Secretary Asiaand covered this in his extensive information that he shared in his presentation. But needless to say, the title is Opening Up Multiple Fronts. And we consider that very important. Rather than focusing on one particular area, such as value chain development, we've looked at a multiple range of knowledge products. And I'm firmly of the belief that knowledge is the basis for sustainable and efficient, effective operational delivery. Without founding ADB's operations on knowledge, we really stand challenged to deliver where we need to deliver. I'll just touch upon some of the key areas of support. It's enhancing data collection and government's capacity to monitor and use data for knowledge and also for decision making. It's designing a new data monitoring system for the Federal Ministry for Food Security, strengthening skills and knowledge for policy and decision makers, and importantly, agricultural mechanization standards. And again, here, I'll go back to Edie Liu's presentation and Professor Zhu's. Again, I believe that here we have much to learn from each other. And that's an area that the government could explore with PRC. Next slide, please. So this is the one area that I consider most exciting. It's our work with the Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Platform, or CARIC, as many of you are aware of. And it's how CARIC provides that absolutely perfect platform for building knowledge and bridging divides, collecting ideas and taking actions. We had regional technical assistance, which was looking at international food safety standards. Secretary Asiaand, you touched upon this as well, that if our countries are to become export-oriented, then food safety and regulation, standardizations are inherently important features. And we have much to learn from each other. This technical assistance commenced about 5 years ago, and it's only just been closed, but provided much achievement across the 11 CARIC member countries to develop food safety management and regulatory standards. The achievements we've listed there, it was in addition to training staff, but also prioritizing DMC needs and delivering significantly on food safety management. Importantly, lessons learned. And I think this one really is maybe perhaps a general point I'd like to make. Understanding each other's challenges and scenarios, it has to be the basis of that cross-learning. Without really understanding deeply the heart of the issues, it's difficult to provide tailored knowledge. In this case, this technical assistance really did have one major lesson, which is maybe to focus down. We had 11 countries, but maybe it's important to focus down into smaller groups and have some of those commonly identified finding constraints that we can work on more deeply. And I would recommend this as a generic approach towards bridging gaps and doing a cooperation across regions, particularly South-South. We also see the role of the CARIC Institute, also based in PRC, that it could be the future key institution that is the disseminator of knowledge. And CARIC member countries' governments to continue to train their staff and their institutions on food safety standards. So that's my final slide there. And it gives us a lot of forward thinking. And we have a meeting on Thursday and Friday this week in Istanbul, and we look forward to sharing with all of you how that cooperation and how that knowledge sharing event with PRC and other members can really lead to much more concerted efforts in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yasmin. I think your presentation was really a good summary of the last two presentations, and also adding the regional cooperation dimension of the sector. We are over time, but please bear with us. It's such a rich program that I think we can continue for 10-15 more minutes. We have two more discussants and the closing remarks. So let me move on quickly to Ms. Yu Min. She is the Deputy Director of Information Service Foreign Economic Cooperation Center of MARA. So we are now back to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, and it would be nice to hear from if Mara could share briefly the experience to support more inclusive development. And please keep in mind that we are already over time. Thank you. Ms. Yu Min, over to you.
Okay, dear Marcia, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored and proud to have the opportunity to, oh, sorry, I can't open this. Okay. Speaking at this meeting today, I'd like to discuss about good practice and inclusive development of China's overseas agriculture investment in Asia. It's about China's enterprise investment overseas to help people get out of poverty. In the last several decades, China's important experience in poverty reduction is industrial development, such as the poverty alleviation through characteristic industrial. In this particular Luochuan April, nearly 10,000 people have been lifted out of poverty. The Gansu Dingxi potato industry boosts farmers' incomes. As other experts have said, investment in agriculture ended the economic development and is proper. But developing countries lack agriculture infrastructure and investment. Many important international agriculture conferences, such as the G20, APEC, and the Conference of Food Loss Reduction, have all advocated strengthen investment in agriculture infrastructure. Asia is the most important region for China's foreign agriculture investment. According to the report on China's agriculture foreign investment cooperation, this report is written by our center. Now I show some detail about the investment in Asia. Investment flow to Asia account 67%, and the FDI stock account for nearly 50% in 2020. China invests about 500 agribusiness in Asia, including 300 plantation enterprise. As was mentioned before, the Western plantation enterprise and cash crops is good for low-income person, provide more work opportunity and need more investment in agriculture infrastructure. In 2020, Chinese agribusiness had 109,000 Asia workers, contribute $28 million in tax payment. According to the report, Chinese agriculture FDI stock mine in Indonesia, Laos, Israel, Burma, Cambodia, and the agriculture FDI flowers money in Israel, Laos, Indonesia, Burma. Those all are agriculture countries. Next, I will introduce the good practice and inclusive development of China's agriculture investment in Asia. To promote the development of an overseas agriculture park, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs authorized the 10 overseas agriculture cooperation zones in 2017. 4 of them located in Asia, they are Cambodia, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Tajikistan. With the development in overseas agriculture from enterprise, it aims to select enterprise with good practice as models for the construction of overseas agriculture park. Furthermore, it encourages enterprise to consolidate the construction in order to achieve responsible investment, inclusive growth, and sustainable value, thus driving development in agriculture and social economic. Next, I will introduce a case. Is about its name is Asiaand. It's located in Kyrgyzstan. It is as the first, the largest scale breeding and process enterprise. The Asiaand zone make for use of Kyrgyzstan good agriculture and animal husbandry resource, as well as Chinese technological and management advantage to build a comprehensive industrial chain. This company has increased the market supply. Is account half market share in Bushka's largest scale agriculture market, and provide more than 400 employees, promote the agriculture development and industrial upgrading. It also involved in social education, medical care, and charity, and has funded many local schools, hospitals, and providing free water, training local workers. FECC, and I came from FECC. FECC have executed many World Bank and ADB program in the last decades. We have many experience on the enterprise, the outside, and we have established some cooperation mechanisms between enterprise and banks, such as the 10 banks and 10 enterprise precision doc conference. Through our investigation, find that financing is the main difficulty for the enterprise. It's difficult for domestic banks to evaluate the overseas assets of enterprise. So I suggest to building the partnership between private sector and the financial institution to diversity investments. And FECC strengthens the cooperation with MOF and IDB, share more information about the enterprise intervention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for, again, stressing the need to partner with the private sector. And this brings me to the next and last speaker. What would we do without hearing from the private sector? So I look forward to hear from Ms. Lily Cao, She's the general manager of overseas department of Dayu Irrigation Group. And you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, hello everyone. I'm Lily from Dayu Irrigation Group, China. I'm pretty honored to attend the PRC Fund Knowledge Sharing webinar seminar and deliver the presentation. The topic we will discuss today is PPP model applied in agriculture irrigation field. I hope my presentation would be helpful. First of all, I'd like to introduce our company. Next, Dayu Irrigation Group, founded in 1999, is a state-level high-tech enterprise relying on the Chinese Academy of Water Science, the Science and Technology Promotion Center of the Ministry of Water Resources, the Chinese Academy of Science, the Chinese Academy of Engineering, and other scientific research institutions. It was listed on the growth enterprise market of Shenzhen Stock Exchange in October 2009. Since its establishment for 22 years, the company has always been focusing on and committed to solving and serving the problems of agriculture, rural area, and water resources. It has developed into a professional system solution of the whole industrial chain, integrating agriculture water saving, urban and rural water supply, sewage treatment, intelligent water affairs, water system connection, water ecological treatment and restoration, and integrating project planning, design, investment, construction, operation, management, and maintenance service solution provider. Integration of the whole industry chain is our great advantage. It is why we can undertake the so big Yuanmo project. Our mission is make the agriculture smarter, make the countryside better, make the farmer happier. And next, our chairman, Mr. Wang Haoyu, put forward this slogan that our business is related to 3 agri, 3 water, 3 networks. Specifically speaking, they are business about water construction, plus drinking water, plus wastewater treatment, by water networks, plus service networks, plus information networks. Next, they are our business model type. Capital investment model, EPC plus O model, the PPP model, that is private-public partnership model. This is a model adopted by our Yuanmo project. I will introduce the maintenance in the later part. Contractor water saving management model, multi-combined model. There are some model examples. And the next, let me introduce the main content PPP model of Yuanmo project. The project is located in Yuanmo country of Yunnan province in China. It is about 119 kilometers from Kunming city. The total irrigated area of the project is 7,000 and 600 ha with smart water measurement device, automatic control and information management systems, and on-farm drip irrigation system. The next, this is the construction details. Some photos show us. And next, the main mechanism introduced in the Big Yuanmo PPP project, as you can see in the last slides here. The one jointly invested by government, Dayu Irrigation Group, social capital, and local farmers. Integrated and comprehensive design, construction, operation, and maintenance. The managed by subsidized team with involvement of all stakeholders, including public, social capital, provider, and local farmers. Enhance the participation of water user by involving in management. Water user not only get benefit from irrigation, but also get benefits from project operation. Encouraging water saving by introducing step water price, introduction water right, and the water treatment mechanism, intending service to farmer beyond the water, such as fertigation and marketing information. The next, this big project and measure mechanism has benefits the local community. It covers 4 townships and 110 villages, 3,300 householder, and 66,300 people has benefits from it. You can see the comparison between before construction of the project and after construction of the project. The next, it helps farmer to grow high value corns through the water network with relies on network connection from water source to crop root. Information network with relies a current measurement, automatic control, and the defense operation of the system and the service network with provide to 24 hours water supply service, agriculture technology, agriculture materials service, financial data support service. The next, we gather benefits of the following. For saving, we save water, save fertilizer, save time, save labor. The average annual water saving is 21.58 million carbon meters. The water saving rate is 48.6%. The rate of saving fertilizer and material is more than 30%. The average labor employment directed from 67.5 people per hectare to 30 people per hectare. For increase, the yield increase rate reached 24.2%. Increase income per move by more than 5,000 yen. The per capita net income from farmers increased by more than 58% for improvement. the irrigation assurance rate is more than 19%. The aversion of water contraction among the people in the irrigation area has been scientifically enhanced. The next. This project has a relatable model, has owned many owners, both some and abroad. It has been listed as the third branch of PPP National Demonstration Project by the Ministry of Finance. In December 2019, the Ministry of Finance of China evaluated the Yuanmou model as a model of people's GDP as the fourth PPP international force of the United National Economic Commission of Europe. In March 2022, the project was rated as best participated case of role revelation of listed companies by the Association of Listed Companies. In July 2022, Yuanmou case was selected into the G20 Global Infrastructure Hub. In August 2022, Yuanmou case was selected into the technology report on BRIS PPP promoting sustainable development. Next, this is our sharing, and if you have any idea, welcome to contact us and visit DAYU. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lily. This is a very interesting example of a successful PPP in the agriculture sector. I know as a fact that that's not very easy to do. So congratulations and thank you for sharing. Again, we are running out of time. There are no Q&A in the chat box, but please feel free to contact us. Where we are in ADB. We got some of the contact details in the presentation, so we can continue the discussion on these important topics. I believe every discussant would have deserved a full webinar. So thank you for bearing with us. And now it's time for the closing remarks by Mr. Saftar Parvez, the advisor of the East Asia Department. Saftar, the floor is yours for closing remarks. Thank you.
Marcia, thank you very much. And since we are already out of time, I'll keep the remarks very short. I think it is left to us to thank everybody today for this very active participation in the seminar today. I believe we had a great list of speakers, starting with Edie Liu, the other opening remark speakers, including our two DGs, and then Tom's excellent presentation on keynote presentation, basically making the point that the agricultural development in PRC has evolved together with ADB's assistance to focus not just on basic infrastructure projects, but taking an integrated and holistic approach to sustainable agricultural development. And I think this is where we have really, I think, added value. And the PRC's example in terms of how to do multi-sector integrated projects and how to evolve excellent coordination mechanisms among many government ministries, agencies, as well as with the private sector, I think is the direction that is needed for other developing member countries to follow. It is not so easy to do, but the PRC example shows that with the proper commitment and dedication, this can be done. And given the multi-sector challenges that agricultural development faces, as was clear from the various presentations today, it is the need of the hour to undertake this kind of a multi-sector approach. And I believe that the principle of South-South cooperation that so many speakers today highlighted provides an excellent platform for PRC to share this knowledge and information with the other developing member countries in different regions of the world. We talked today about Pakistan, we talked about CARIC, but also in countries like South Asia, countries of Southeast Asia. I think some of the lessons and and some of the examples that were quoted today, including the last example on how to do successful PPP models in agricultural development, holds a lot of promise for many of these countries. I would really like to thank our East Asia division led by Tom and Shingo for putting this seminar today together, as was emphasized that this is the first of a 3 series seminars on agricultural development, and the next 2 seminars, one on innovation in food value chain development, and the second on transformation to sustainable and resilient agriculture development. I believe it is on the screen today as well, in September and in October. Also promise to be very, very interesting and exciting opportunities for knowledge creation as well as knowledge sharing. And we urge you to please come and participate in these seminars and enlighten us with your views and with your perspectives in these seminars. And I think together, this series of seminars provides an excellent opportunity for learning. Finally, I would like to really thank the PRC Fund. PRC Fund has been a steadfast partner of ADB in so many different areas. We talked about agriculture today, but PRC Fund has really financed many innovative projects and technical assistance in different areas that relate to poverty reduction and reduction of vulnerability and promoting regional economic cooperation. So we are very grateful for the support that we have received from the Ministry of Finance and the PRC Fund and from the other ministries in terms of technical assistance to make these investments possible in many of our developing member countries. So I think with that, let me thank everybody once again and bring this seminar to a close. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bantam.
Bye-bye, see you.
这就结束了。